think about this. Ask yourself this question. What am I inviting people into? If I went through my own process, how would I feel? I was describing kind of like the tension that business owners will have. They're like, okay, I'm gonna like go talk to people. Why am I talking to them? So that they join my thing, but they forget about these first three steps, right? They forget about we're not talking about selling something, we're just outreaching to them. We're not even trying to sell them something yet. We're qualifying them. I don't know that I want to work with them. So we skip all these parts and we think that not everyone here exactly right, but these are the tendencies. These are the temptations. Okay. We want to send them the link. It's like, we got to take a deep breath. Let's ask them some more questions, get to know them a little bit more, and then let's nurture them to see if they're going to be really like motivated to actually take action. Because you could sell somebody and they buy and then they do nothing. No one really wins, right? So this process is really helping to eliminate this part. Okay, so that said, it becomes a fun way. Another really easy way to look at this filter is think about this. Ask yourself this question. What am I inviting people into? If I went through my own process, how would I feel? I know those are simple questions, but we'll re-ask, ourselves that same question and say, like, what am I inviting somebody into? It's like, well, I'm inviting him into kind of some like, 50-50 feeling copy. Like, I don't know. It doesn't really necessarily feel that great, right? But what if you could prepare something for them? Here's an example. When you guys have guests come over to the house, do you just leave it the way it is or do you pick up a little bit? If they're coming over for Logan's smiling.
It depends on who's coming, Chris.
It depends on who's coming. Okay, that's totally fair. That's totally fair. Well, let's say this is potentially your future best customer, right? It's like you want to build a good relationship, give a good impression, and then if you're going to have dinner together, what type of meal are you going to prepare, right? It depends who's coming. We'll assume that it's a great guest, right? And you want to put your best foot forward. You want them to enjoy the smell. You want them of the food. You want them to enjoy the presentation of the plate and actually the way it tastes, and then maybe have great conversation, so you kind of learn about them a little bit, what they're into, so you're prepared to have a conversation around maybe things that they're more comfortable with and interested in, right? You see where I'm going with this? How does this thing, when we apply this thinking to the buyer's journey, it lights it on fire, but not just for our future client or customer, for us, because we've prepared a home, we've prepared a meal, and we're inviting them into that. So let's look at what that could be. A couple options, right? I'm calling this a podcast flow because inviting them to a show, inviting them to, a stage is a great way to get a higher profile, a Dream 100's person's attention. Hey, do you mind if I introduce you to a lot of other people that would benefit from what you're already talking about? That's a great idea. And even if it's only 5 or only 10, hey, Chris, if you're looking at this, like, I don't have a show, it's not a big deal. Like, I wouldn't rule yourself out here. You could do a live, like go live on IG, go live on your Facebook profile. I'm not a big proponent of, hey, let's stack on a bunch of extra SOPs for publishing and editing and da-da-da. If you have those challenges, talk to Mike. He can help you with processes, right? But what I am a big proponent of, have a quality process that you can invite somebody into, and that is attractive to the right person that you're communicating with, and to where you can start building relationship. You guys with me? So we can keep going here. I call it the right formula. It's where you find the right people and you're sending them the right message so you can build the right relationships. It's the right formula. I'm assuming you guys didn't want to hear about the wrong formula today, so go with the right one. All right, just for clarity, like right people, starting out with right people. Who are the right people? I know it's very common that we'll talk about the right people as for client acquisition, and we'll kind of stay in that vein for today's conversation just for simplicity. But outside of new clients, this is a great way to also get top talent. If you're looking for a top sales director or a product manager or project manager or whatever your top role is, it's you can find somebody, like on LinkedIn or any social platform, you can see somebody that's maybe actively doing this already really well and say, hey, I noticed the great work you're doing. Do you ever get asked to speak on stage by chance? Oh, no, either they do, and I'd be like, oh, great, would you mind sharing, coming to speak to my audience? No, I don't. I think you're more valuable than you realize. Would you mind sharing this one or this two, these two specific simple things with my audience? It'd be so powerful coming from you. That in itself, now you're starting to build relationship with somebody that could, potentially work with you in the future. You guys with me on this? Okay, great. Because do you want somebody that's been looking for a job for 12 months or somebody that's already actively doing it, getting paid well, and they can come in and make a huge difference right away for your business? It's like usually that one, right? Okay, strategic partnerships and JV deals. Okay, this is inviting these high performing, people to a platform is often very natural and very easy. And there's a couple parts to this that I in the messaging area that I'm excited to talk about with how to do it. All right, just to speed it up a little bit. Speaking on, virtual and in-person stages. This is booking yourself as well. Like if you're looking to do more speaking and get your voice and brand out there as well, inviting them onto your platform first makes it easier to reciprocate. You see where this is all going. Vendors and service providers, if you want to look for investors to raise capital, whoa, so-and-so, built a fund, 250, $1 million fund, $2 billion fund. Where did you get started? What was your first raise? And you get into the stories, right? If you want to meet more investors to maybe invest in your company or do M&A stuff. And then, I forgot I left that one in there. Significant other. Maybe some people have called this like, what did it come up as, Sean? It's like flow date or something. I don't know. It's all a pipeline, I suppose, if you're in that season or that part of life. But we'll stay focused on, how to identify your, like dream clients. It just kind of skipped through there. So you guys are familiar with this part in terms of like importing likes, with FlowChat. When we're looking for these right people with our importing tools, we can import likes very easily. Or we can go, I like to find Dream 100, people, their followers and their audience can be great future customers. But I also like to look at who they're following, because that's kind of, typically above them and who they're interested in and learning from, which is, potentially even a better Dream 100 person for us too, right? So that's like a great little hack to pay attention to. And of course, as you have inbound coming your way, you can import from DM. So these are just 3 different environment examples that most of you are, I'm assuming, familiar with, and on all platforms at this point, which is great. Let's talk about the right message. Okay, for the right message, I prepared this resource for you guys, the podcast flow, some scripts and tips. Just to be clear, like if you don't have a Facebook group, or you're struggling to find a lead magnet in general, or one that you like and feel good about, this can fill that place. And if you're just beginning your sales process and don't have a website or like these established assets, this can be a great thing. Now, let me give you some clarity here. If you have a show running already, you're good. You have your platform. You can invite people onto this. This is a good flow for acquisition. If you don't, here is a simple way to start with this without taking on a bunch of extra work. In fact, 0 extra work. When if someone ever asks about your show, it's like, oh, I've just decided to launch this show. I'm currently putting together my first 25 episodes, and I'd love for you to be a part of it. And I can keep you posted on when I'm going to publish it. What this allows you to do is reach out to people, book a discovery call / interview call, right? From the beginning, you're on Zoom anyway. And instead of just talking to them, you now just hit record and ask them questions, leading them through an interview, getting to know them more. You don't have to then publish and then do all this. You don't have to do a bunch of stuff up front. This could be a simple way to allow you to do all the same activity that you want to do under a but through a framework where people are actually, you're like a magnet now, like they're attracted to you, they're like coming towards you. There's a lot less resistance. Okay. So here's some initial messages that we can use. And then there's a whole, there's a lot more messages here, but we'll go through a few together. And then we can move into some Q&A in a bit. All right. Initial message. Hey, I'm impressed on how you're showing up. First name. I get the sense that others often look to you for guidance. Do you ever get asked to speak on stages or shows by chance? You're opening up that conversation. They're going to say yes. They're going to say no. In the event you don't get a reply, hey, appreciate you. Hope you're having a great day. It's just a compliment. It's just a bump, but in a, thankful, positive way. And then they'll see the question. Never heard back from you. All good though. Keep doing great things in the world. Perhaps our paths will cross at another time. We'll have that takeaway message. But when they reply, you're into a conversation, you can send them an invite to your podcast, right? Would you be opposed to ever coming on my show to speak to my audience? That's the direct question. You can preface this with something before, like acknowledge, like, so right here, I wanted to have the direct question for you guys. You could just send this, or if you'd like, you can respond, with something up here, acknowledging whatever they said. Oh, yes, I do speak often. Oh, great. What topics do you usually talk about? Oh, I talk about leadership. Oh my gosh, leadership would fit perfect. Would you be opposed to ever coming on my show to speak to my audience about that? You see kind of how that would apply with the question? Okay, great. So hopefully the concept is sinking in, and then this is a resource for some for copy you can look over. I also put at the bottom next steps. So after you have the conversation, then what? Well, you're going to complete the interview, fulfill on what you said you're going to do, publish it at some point. By allowing to batch publish, it gives you some more space and time to have more calls and generate more sales to prove the concept, right? But after, book a proper sales call. So, and actually, yeah, I have another resource below to get into more detail there. And then after you book the sales call, right, they'll complete the initial investment in the product and service, and then you can begin onboarding and delivering for the client. On this doc, I also included podcast interview best practices, right? So there's actually a pre-interview, during interview, and post-interview process. And for this process, just kind of going through some of these, some might sound kind of funny, but smile. Like when they just show up before you start the interview, like set the tone, let them know like they're in a good place, it's going to be okay. Some are nervous, some have different thoughts, feelings, or maybe they're confident, but they just got off a challenging meeting, right? And so we got to kind of reset the tone and the atmosphere a little bit. Let your guests know that you're grateful for them being there. Establish your time frame. Hey, I know we have 60 minutes booked or blocked out. Is that still the right time frame? Hey, we got 30 minutes blocked. Is that still the right time frame? Yes. Okay, cool. We know we're all good within a certain amount of time, so they won't get tied up on a meeting longer than they want to be. Yeah, setting the tone. Hey, this is going to go great today. Here's why. You're talking about this. Our audience is going to love it, and it's going to serve them great. Okay, cool. And so then you don't have to do this one, but I recommend it. Just bring them through roughly how it's going to flow, like how the conversation is going to flow. A really simple example of this could be, hey, in the first part, I like to actually focus on the subject matter. And in the second half, you'll find me asking you more questions about yourself to hear more of your story and why, what you just talked about is so credible and going to work great. Okay, cool. That sounds good. So they know roughly where you're going in a very simple direction. During the interview, we got to have a hook. Why should people listen to this? Why should they give their time and attention to it? It's best to have one reason, not a bunch, just one, and find the best one and hit them with that. So big one there. Share that up front. I give some examples of how to frame it. And while your guest is talking, watch their energy, their pain, like when it gets high or when it gets low. Look for the extremes. And simply, as you've heard us talk about this before, can you tell me more about that? Whoa, I just heard you say insert pleasure or pain. Tell us more, tell me more about that, or tell us more about that. And let them expand on that. You're getting to know them more, but you're getting to know, what they're currently thinking about and feeling, which is going to really set up the post-interview stuff. So for post-interview, when you're getting into their story and you're finding some of their pain, you're asking about some of their biggest struggles, right, that they needed to overcome, the challenges that they need to overcome. Post-interview, it's like, oh, great, how do you feel it went? Oh, I felt this, I felt great. Hey, I remember you mentioned, this part and you were struggling with that. Have you given up trying to solve that? No, I haven't. Oh, and then you're starting to get into it. Notice I left more time for the post interview. With that pain, it's like, you know what? I know we both got to jump to our next one. This seems pretty urgent. Should we connect again tomorrow, or should we connect again next week? And I have some more resources for you that would really help with this particular thing that you're experiencing. And then you're into your sales conversation. You've just booked your sales call. So that's kind of a flow of how we've leveraged this platform before. I know there's multiple people doing it and probably have additional great thoughts. These are some best practices, SOPs that I've outlined that have really worked, well for us in the past for all different types of players. And then I also included a podcast interviewer, like quick start guide. This could be podcast or show. Obviously you can just go live as well. You don't have to do a recording and editing it as well. But naming it could be as simple as the Nick Show. There we go. That's done. Here's an intro. You can add like some type of ending element, and then you have kind of like your closing statement. Your show's done. Everything else in between is outlined above. So this resource should be really helpful for you guys. This will be in the Slack channel, and before we get off here, I'll put this in the Zoom chat for you as well. But when you're talking to the right people and you send them the right message and you have a solid plan, you're inviting somebody into a like safe environment, a great environment that's serving them to some level, but nurturing the relationship, you're going to be able to identify the right relationships and go deeper on those right relationships with the right formula and the podcast flow.